Hello and welcome back to the examination prep. So, some things that I want to just discuss in today's video is just how do you prepare for your exam, as well as the meaning behind some questions. So, the specialty area in which I have is physical therapy, but these exam preparation tips can be used across the board, whether you're studying for your GRE, your LSAT, MCAT. These are preparation tools that you can utilize when you get started with preparing for those exams. So the first thing that you want to think about when you're preparing for your exam is you want to have a good mindset, right? So your mindset for preparing for the exam. So this is not your study strategy. This is not I'm taking my LSAT on April the 1st and how to study along the way. This is not what this this is about. This presentation is about. This presentation is I've studied for 2 months. My exam is in 1 week. How do I mentally place myself into a space in which I am prepared to actually test and take the exam? So, a couple of things I want you to take into consideration is that when you're about to test, as you get close to the date, you are going to have increased anxiety. This is not abnormal, right? You should have a healthy amount of anxiety. A lot of times, I like to tell my students that your anxiety should propel you to success. It should not be holding you back. So, if you get into a space where your anxiety is holding you back, then that's where we need to look at are there other avenues in terms of talk therapy? Do you need to seek a counselor? Are there any medications that could be utilized to help you focus and decrease your anxiety? So some of the things you want to consider for your mindset going to the exam is when you're looking at the questions, you want to focus on what is in front of you, right? Focus on what they're asking you. Do not add, delete, transform, or assume anything. Do not assume that they meant to tell you this or they meant to ask you this. The test writers, these questions that they're presenting to you have been vetted very well. So what they ask you is what they mean to ask you. These questions have gone through multiple reviews. They've been tried out multiple times. So this is not the first version of this question. This question that you're seeing on your exam is typically the fifth or sixth time that it has gone through review. And now they have decided to actually use it, right? You want to make sure that you take into consideration any key terms that will be pertinent to you being able to answer. So yes, there are multiple things, and we'll talk about key terms in a moment. But when I say this, I mean, does the question include terms as in most, best, least? Okay. When you typically have a question that is asking this, or it may say except, then that's something that you want to circle, right? Because then what that is cueing my mind to is that there may be multiple correct answers. So then you want to go back to say, is there a safe first answer? Is there a hierarchy? So can I numerically place in one, two, three, four, right? Or is there a standard of care or a standard that is in place? When you do answer and narrow your responses down to two questions, you want to go back and then review your actual question to see is there anything else that you are now seeing now that you only have two answer choices to select from instead of four. So you want to go back and look at the question, and then you're going to look at the actual two answer choices you now have and actually say, are there any pros and cons and why I may be going one way or another? So why am I going to put all of my marbles in answer C but not D? Okay. Use what you know to help answer the question. If other answers are a definite no, then you do not select that answer ever. So breaking that down, what number 4 means is, let's say I'm taking my MCAT exam and the question is asking me about parts of the brain, right? And so I know that answers A, C, and D are definitely not the answer because I know those for a fact. I understand them completely. But B, I do not ever remember in my 3 months of studying seeing answer B. But I'm going to select C because I feel comfortable with that. Do not fall into that pit hole. You're going to want to only select answers that you know for 100% true to be correct. So no, if I know A, C, and D are incorrect, B, although I don't know what this term is, it has to be the right answer. a lot of times students will select an answer that they know is incorrect because they feel comfortable with it. This is when you have mastered your deductive reasoning skills. When I can cross out A, C, and D, then I know for a fact that, and B is my answer, and I don't second guess myself, then I know that I have mastered deductive reasoning. I know in this teaching in this presentation, it seems very straightforward to think about this and to do it. But when you're getting to where you're taking 200, 250 questions and you're in that rut and you're tired and fatigued, these are things that you really want to go back to so that you can move forward and progress with your exam. Do not rely on patterns. The example that I give is if the answers 1 through 5 have all been A, right? And then you get to number 6 and you're like, oh my gosh, this is A. This can't be right. Don't change your answer just because of the pattern. These test questions are put in a random order, right? So they're randomized. So it could be that 1 through 6 are the answer is A. If you know that the answer 6 is A, then select A. Do not say that you're not selecting based off of a pattern. If you can't recall a mnemonic, stop that thought process and go back to what you truly know. In my day to day, in terms of tutoring, I do not have students rely on mnemonics because I found mnemonics, once you start to use too many of them, they start to cloud your brain and it doesn't give you the actual why to the information, right? So if you are using mnemonics, if you have a couple that you are like my tried and true, but you get on the exam and you can't think of what they are, do not rack your brain and sit there for 5 minutes to try to think of the mnemonic. I want you to stop the thought process, and then I want you to go back to what you truly know, which is going and looking at the question. Are there key terms that I can pull out? Can I deductively reason? Things that are going to be concrete in terms of your study. And the last thing you want to do is stop your racing thoughts and focus. Okay. So when you get on this exam, there are going to be multiple things that are going through your mind. The hardest thing for us to do in this time in our society is focus on one thing at a time. So yes, you're reading question number 18, but then you're thinking, oh my gosh, did I eat too much breakfast? Oh my gosh, I didn't drink enough water. Am I going to be thirsty? Am I going to need to go to my locker? Am I going to am I tapping my desk too loud? Somebody just walked by. You have all of these thoughts that are going through your mind while you're reading question 18, which allows you not to focus. I tell students, just be mindful of your body. Be mindful of the space that you're in, right? So you want to, if you get into that space, you want to sit and be still, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and then open your eyes and refocus on the question. You want to basically act like the only thing that exists is a screen that's in front of you. You're going to have moments where you get like this, this is when fatigue starts to set in, right? When you start to think about other things. You want to basically allow yourself the opportunity to reset your mind and be able to essentially go back to the information and feel very comfortable with what you're doing. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to discuss are some testing hints. Okay. So this is when you are actually reading the question. So again, the first thing that we talked about was mindset for the exam. So that is when you're doing practice exams leading up to your exam, some things that you need to do to be mindful, to practice mindfulness while you're actually taking the exam. This section will now focus on testing strategies or hints to help you better understand and answer questions. Okay. So the first thing is you want to read the question thoroughly. You can mouth the questions depending on the place that you're at. I say that with caution, but mouthing it so that you can actually say it slowly and for good understanding. So as a tutor, when I'm working with students, typically we will start off with them reading the questions to me and have me walk through their thought process as they're reading. This allows them to actually hear what they're saying out loud. It allows me to give them feedback on if they're missing words, that type of thing. Typically, when we're reading to ourselves in our head, we start to skip over things. We may be, we may delete some information. We may add some information that is not there. So as much as you can without being disruptive within your testing center, again, without being disruptive in your testing center. You want to try to read the questions slowly for good understanding, mouth them if that is possible. During COVID, when you were required to wear masks within your testing center, this was obviously very helpful. Now that you don't have to wear masks within the testing center, some students aren't as comfortable. If you're not comfortable, do not do this. Okay. But the goal and idea is that you want to read slowly and for good understanding. Again, when you read the question, you want to narrow your answers down to two, and then reread the entire question to select the answers. In questions in which you do not know what you're being asked, reread the question. Typically, with all testing, MCAT, LSAT, MPTE, all of those things, you're given a piece of paper or whiteboard where you can write down information. So you want to write down the pertinent information. Next, you will want to narrow your choices down from what you do know from the question. This will take you longer, so give yourself an opportunity to think this out. So this essentially is when you're going to a deeper level of thinking. So we know that there are common questions on the exam where it's basically like, it's a knowledge check. Do I know blue from green? Do I know this information clear cut? Right? Some questions require you to go a bit deeper, especially those in which you do not understand or know what they're asking you. So let's again say, for example, if I'm taking my GRE and it's asking me a common thing is it will ask you a definition of a word. Well, I don't know what this prefix means, this suffix means, so I have to basically go through my mind to see if there's anything within this question, context clues, paragraph that can give me information into what this word means. Okay. So that's when you will use your whiteboard. So knowing that this question may take you longer, right? So if I read this question initially, I may check it or flag it, whatever system you're working with, to come back at the end of the section so that I can now allow myself to focus. Some students like to flag questions, some do not. I say when you're taking your practice exams, try both ways to see what is comfortable for you because a lot of the things that, are across the board, some students like, some students do not, but you need to understand what is comfortable for you as a test taker as you're going forward. If you feel you're getting in a rut with information that you do not know, stop. Again, close your eyes for a minute and repeat, I have prepared for the exam. I know this information. The key is to not get into a negative space. So it is easy for when you do not know an answer clearly, for when you are having a lack of understanding, for you to get into this space of negativity. Oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this exam. It is exactly one question. Center yourself, be mindful, focus, either flag it if that's something you prefer, or take the time to take a step deeper. A lot of times, the questions that students find difficult are those in which it requires you to take a step deeper. So a lot of times in my tutoring sessions that I do with students, that is my challenge to them, is to not take it as surface level because this question is not a surface level question. This is a level 2 and 3 type of question. So I need you to dig deeper to really be able to use some clues within this sentence to be able to understand what they're saying clearly. Once you have selected an answer, do not second guess yourself. Stick with the answer that you choose. I tell students, once you selected C for question 77, do not go back and change it because you have a feeling. I need you to have concrete, objective information for why you selected or you have to change your answer. Typically, the reasons why you would change your answer is because you misread something within the question, you didn't see it clearly. It's something that is a common error. It's not going to be, I just feel like this is a better answer. Okay. Again, do not add any information, only answer what is being specifically asked. And then plan your breaks prior to the test starting. So how you know how to plan your breaks is based off of what your practice test you did during the practice test, right? So for example, MPTE, if you need to take an unscheduled break after every section rather, then do so, right? Take your unscheduled break because that's how you've practiced. That is what allowed you to stay pretty level throughout the section. Um, you know, or if you need to take a longer break, or if they give you like an official break, take the entire time. A lot of students will want to say, well, I want to get back to taking my test. Take the whole time because you need that time to reframe your mind, to rest, to just recenter yourself, take a drink, take a snack so that you feel more confident. Okay. The biggest thing about these testing strategies and or hints is that you want to do what you have practiced. So when you show up for your exam, this should not be the first time you're utilizing these strategies. You should have used them um, previously when you've done practice tests. Therefore, that you're going to be more successful. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to cover um, are some common questions. So I use NPTE because, again, my background is physical therapy, but this can be applied to anything. So this gives you what the actual question may say and how you can interpret it in your mind, right? So when it asks you what's the most accurate explanation, it's asking you to which answer choice describes the condition listed in the question. Signs and symptoms most indicative of the condition. Which answer choices are all the key terms listed? So meaning typically when it's asking you signs and symptoms or it's asking you to stratify some information, there typically will be 3 to 5 key terms. So key terms could be rainbow, it could be pot of gold, lucky charms, leprechaun, green. Those could be all the key terms, right? And then it's asking you, it may ask you March the 5th, March the 10th, March the 15th, March the 20th. Which days is associated with, right? So that is what I'm getting to. Make sure all of your key terms equal whatever your answer choice is. Questions that have except typically mean that there are 3 correct answers. And so you must select the answer that does not fit the description of the question. So when it has except, just know that there are going to be 3 correct answers, and that is why it is important and imperative for you to read the question thoroughly. For this, it says best action for a therapist. It could be for a law student. It could be for a pre-med student. So basically, best action typically indicates that there's all the answer choices could be correct, and so you'll need to put them in a 1, 2, 3, 4 order. Most likely result, which answer describes the condition listed in the question. You need to be able to relate the key terms to your answer choice. Least likely to be contraindicated. All conditions are bad choices, but which choice has the least amount of cons? So which choice, if you had a hierarchy, all of them are bad. But if I had to do bad to worst, then they're asking you just bad and not the worst. Best evidence, which answer choice answers all the key terms listed. Higher priority, which key choices would you perform first? So again, this is going to be a hierarchy. You're going to rank it 1 through 4. Therapist should avoid or individual should avoid. Basically, which one has a contraindication, a direct and absolute contraindication for you to perform your task. Which question is best for a therapist to ask? It's asking you to directly link your answers directly to the condition described. So if they're asking you about angina, and this is again for your medical professionals, if they're asking about angina, or if they ask you about a statute, a law, then you need to be able to directly relate that to what is being asked. When they ask you what contributes most, again, there is directly linked to a specific condition. So you're going to use the key term that categorizes answer choices based on the key terms. First, if necessary, you have multiple ones that are correct. So you're going to need to put them in a 1, 2, 3, 4 a hierarchy, right? Again, it's for your therapist, which muscle will become progressively tight, which one is activated the most. Okay. So as you can tell, you can say that common questions that you'll see in the medical field, LSAT, MCAT, GRE, right, are listed here. You basically need to be able to interpret it to layman's terms, right? So when I'm doing this is in preparation for when I'm taking a practice exam. So again, this is not how to develop your study plan, which we will discuss in another video, but this is how to basically start your practice exam time frame, how to use that practice exam, how to interpret questions, and how to effectively use your time during the exam as well. Hope that this video is helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you soon.